Hey, David Wood here, and welcome to My Extra Mile. And we're in Sifnos, Greece, in the Greek islands, and I'm so excited about today's show. This lady is remarkable. She's talking about servant leadership, leading with the heart, but in every single area of your life. So enjoy the show. Don't forget, do those things, get involved with the conversation, and we'll definitely see you on the other side. Hello there.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
So good.
I said the second show, by the way, if you haven't listened to the first show, go back and listen to it. It will set the context of everything we're about to talk about. And it's beautiful. And I always know when it's beautiful because it seems like I'm talking for 3 minutes and suddenly 45 minutes is gone. And that's how you know it. You're just so caught up in the conversation that the time passes. Also, this is being recorded during COVID-19. We're not going to talk about it a whole lot, but if we do reference it, apply it, because I want this to be timeless. Apply COVID to whatever's happening in your life right now and the obstacle in front of you, whether you're going through a separation or a loss. Just apply the same principles. They work everywhere. And also the sound quality, this is a Zoom recording, so you know what, if the sound isn't great, suck it up and just listen to the content, because the content will be awesome. So DelRae, you shared so much of your story. I don't need to recap it, but that I think people will re-listen to that show over and over and over again, because there were so many gems layered in the gems, and it was such a powerful story. But here we are, coming forward from the small farm in North Dakota, from the lessons of your grandfather, the lessons of your grandmother, your mother and father, and sort of the journey through the sort of the peaks of, being recognized at college, magna cum laude, which is, extreme excellence, to the valley of absolute despair where you're broke and broken and phoning your mother saying, what have I done wrong? I can't feed my kids, sort of lost, having tried so many different things. And then you enter the world of network marketing. And, let's talk about it, because, when I asked you something, again, we talked about this for 3 seconds, what should we talk about? And you talked about servant leadership, right? And you talked about this whole idea of connecting. So let's start with servant leadership. What does that mean?
Well, I think it's leading leading more with your heart and your desire to make an impact far beyond, performance, achievement, or profit. I feel like so often we've mistaken leadership for authority or an amount of education or, experience. And I truly believe leadership can be in any part of our life, whether you want to be a better leader at home. Leadership is truly influence. And I desire to not only, leave people better than they were each day that I come into contact with them, that they feel valued, seen, and heard, but most importantly, collaborate with other humans that want to make that difference as well. And I truly believe that the evolution of leadership is upon us, because what's great about this time right now, whether, you're listening right now with what we've experienced with the global pandemic, or in the future, our world will be forever changed. And it's because it's a level playing field. No one's been through this experience before. So you can't listen to somebody is telling you what to do, because they don't know either, because they've never experienced it before. We haven't. And that is such a beautiful, I believe, breeding ground and playing field for people that you wouldn't necessarily even expect to rise up through service. We're going to have a lot of challenges and problems to solve throughout this. And I believe the leaders of the future are going to be the ones that, to be honest, care and are vulnerable enough to say, I don't have everything figured out, but I would love to do this with you. And that's how I choose to lead my team, is as a collective whole versus it being mine. It's ours. And when I put people in leadership positions and make them uncomfortable, it's because I see the greatness and potential in them. And I believe, a servant leader doesn't take credit for anything. It's truly the whole that makes it happen.
Yeah. And to be a servant leader, I love the fact that you truly, understand that leadership is every aspect of our lives, right? It's in the business aspect, but in raising our children, it's in the home. I mean, so we are leading in all areas, right?
Yep.
Yeah. You comfortable?
I know I had my charger. I needed to grab it.
No,
So
it's perfect. It's perfect. We love it. We love it. And so, yeah, so talk to me about that, the idea that, we are leading in all these different areas. And it's just not, because some people just think, especially as network marketers, oh yeah, leadership is this, but how we lead our family, how we lead our bank account, how we lead our relationships, how we lead our challenges, right? I mean, they all impact, ultimately who we become as a leader, right?
yeah, I mean, it's influence, and choosing to raise your standard of excellence in every area of your life is going to influence those around you, positively. And, I feel like in our team specifically, I just encourage people to be better humans. And when you're a better human every day, I feel like the performance side of anything that you're trying to achieve is going to happen in time. And most importantly, I don't want high achievers and performers that are unfulfilled and unhappy, because you can do that anywhere. There are so many people that have climbed corporate ladders that are super wealthy. I know very high level, executives and CEOs that aren't necessarily happy or fulfilled. And we know that so much of that stems from purpose. And what gives us purpose and meaning is, truly how we can add value. And a large part of my purpose and meaning is work. And I think it is for a lot of high achievers. But when you start to trade your worth for the next goal, the next outcome, the next rank, the next, recognition of who you are as a leader and all of that, things that people can get, attached to, here it's almost the opposite. It's like deflecting the recognition from you onto others. And I honestly live in this space right now. The amount of happiness and fulfillment that I have day to day when I get to see a team member excel, when I see somebody step outside of, and it's not just excel in they've reached a new rank, but it's excel in, oh my gosh, they went live and shared their story, or they did something totally outside of their comfort zone, or they, contributed in a way and gave back in a way that they never thought possible before. Like, those are the things that we celebrate. And I just feel like that is what is going to be the evolution in how people view, influence now.
Yeah, it was a great distinction for you to make, as because people think about excellence or achievement, and but if we go back to the first show of you running to the bridge and back, and just this idea that these building blocks, a great leader can recognize and celebrate those tiny steps. You talk about just doing the first live as being an achievement. What do you say to someone who's listening? And I hear this a lot, and so do you. People say, well, I'm not really a leader. And you see, especially a lot of women who start to lose their identity as mothers, or they start to lose their voice in a home quite often, because everyone's first, the kids are first, the husband's first, or whatever. And so, but they often they start looking in the mirror and they don't see the value. And you said in the first show that you've been there. You already know what that felt like, to look in and not see, or to have such self-doubt that you can actually do it. But what do you say to those people that say, well, I'm not really a leader?
I always want to know what the story is. There's a story there, and there's a reason why they feel that way. And it's usually a limiting story. So I get very curious on why they feel that that is true for them. And most of the time, it's either they don't feel like they have what we just talked about, the success, the status, or the achievement to be categorized as a leader. So I usually ask them, what do you feel your definition of a leader is? Tell me, what do you think who is a leader? And usually they'll say, well, somebody that is, and they'll start to, identify what they feel a leader is. And, I'll get them in agreement with me. Would you agree that you've maybe had somebody in your life that's influenced you positively that may have not been labeled as a leader necessarily? Maybe it was a teacher, maybe it was a coach or a parent or a friend, or maybe even your significant other, whomever. And getting them in agreement by saying, well, yeah, okay, well, what about that person made you feel like they had a positive influence in your life? What in their character was inspiring to you? What in more of their character, what core values aligned with you for you to respect this person at such a high level? Because let's be honest, there's a lot of leaders that we don't necessarily respect their core values or their character, and they're still considered a leader. So when I start,
some are considered the leaders of the free world.
exactly,
Sorry.
exactly. So we need to get in agreement and create a new story. So, if they start to list some of these things, well, when in your life have you also been a positive influence? Do you feel you are for your family right now? Do you feel you have been for a friend? Do you feel like you have been for your community? Why do you feel that you're limiting yourself to being a leader here? And if you operate out of your core values and character of creating an impact, solving problems, adding value to people's lives, serving people, you're a leader in that definition. And so it's just getting them to see a different way of it's changing their mindset and their thinking and their perspective.
Yeah. So much of your work you do with people, it comes back down to the story we're telling ourselves, right? And science is showing us that we can completely redesign the brain through neuroplasticity. So, which means that whatever story we're telling ourselves right now is creating a result. And if we have a negative story, if we have doubt stories, if we have blame stories, they're all going to show up in the outside world in a negative way and impact what we can do, how we can do it, and how we feel, right? But there's this, because the science shows us that we can completely reconfigure the brain and sort of create new neural pathways. And as we do, again, if we're in the right vehicle at the right time, because those elements are essential. We can have the greatest thinking in the world, but if we're in the wrong vehicle, if we're selling VCRs right now, we're not going to be doing much, right? But so that idea, and I know you've done it, I know that, but you had a great mindset growing up because it was instilled in you through generational family living together in the same farm, which I think is amazing. But, talk a little bit about that, how you've witnessed people who really had low self-esteem, were really beating themselves up, were really living in a sort of a shallow place, and how you've seen them grow. What's that been like to watch and witness and see their stories changing, that how they speak, how they think? Is that crazy?
It's why I'm so happy. Like, that's why I'm happy. No, why I'm so fulfilled is watching this process happen in people. There's no other business model I feel that I could have that much influence or impact in for so many people, no matter where they've been. I mean, let's think about people that maybe didn't have the type of childhood that I had, which is more often the case than not, right? And I talk to them about what they've been told, the story they've adopted, the lack of belief that they've had their whole life. And to be honest, sometimes I feel like I'm a parent that they didn't have, meaning the influence in their life of just breathing belief into someone that they didn't get an opportunity to have at a young age. I feel almost obligated and responsible to give somebody that because they have never either received it, they've never been recognized for their efforts, celebrated. Most people are merely tolerated day to day in their work environment. So this vehicle has given me an opportunity to breathe that hope and belief and cultivate community that empowers, inspires, encourages, supports, and most importantly, gives people the space to truly be themselves in their story at that moment, be vulnerable enough to share that is where they're at, but it's not where they're going to stay because they know where they're going. That is the beauty of this model that I didn't know was going to make me so happy and fulfilled.
Yeah. And by the way, it's so lovely seeing your family. It's just so great. Everyone's around. That's the authenticity piece I love. And it's just like, it just says something. And I just listen to you talking, and sometimes you've got someone behind you. You're talking to someone over. I'm in a different country even, and it's just like they're doing their thing, drinking their tea. It's awesome. If we look at this idea of growing a leader, becoming a leader ourselves and growing leaders, because, we talk about servant leadership, but I wonder if you could lead us through, because I'm thinking about, what we can impart. And there's leaders who are listening right now who consider themselves leaders that, maybe they're, some like you said, some people lead in the wrong direction, or they lead with the wrong intention, or they'll lead with a clenched fist, or and especially in our profession where people think it's their team, my team, and suddenly someone wants to break away and do their own thing, and it becomes all this friction and all that kind of thing. But just lead me through becoming a leader and developing leaders. What's the journey? What have you discovered? And what's the thing that we can impart on this audience so that they can really discover it themselves and start to create and help create greater leaders?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a discovery process. What's so beautiful about evolution as a human is everything in your life will evolve the same way. my business has as well. When I first started, I knew very little about leadership. I didn't study it. I knew I valued it, absolutely, because I had so many people influence my life in a positive way that I considered a role model or a leader, but I didn't necessarily set out to say, I'm going to be a great leader at Isogenics. It just kind of evolved with time. When I first started, once again, I was in survival mode and needed to provide. So I was in very much an achievement place and needed to provide for myself and my girls. So when I started, there were a lot of people that came into the business as leaders that were also very achievement driven, very goal oriented. We went super fast together, had a lot of success fast. But the problem with not being centered into something that's a little bit more meaningful and deeper is that success always rises and falls, as does business, meaning it will go up, it will plateau, it will go down, it will do all of these things, which is totally normal, absolutely normal, personally and professionally, for life to look like this. Except when people are attached to only the outcome, then when they don't see the same outcome, belief changes. And so I saw this process happening, and I knew that I could not drag people into a future vision. I knew they'd either have to be pulled to it and aligned to it, take responsibility for their own businesses and themselves as a leader, or not. And I think one of the most beautiful things about growing an organization that's built on trust and collaboration and co-creation is, if you believe that you have to force people to stay, it's never going to work. It's just like a healthy personal relationship. As soon as somebody feels that, they're not going to feel valued, seen, and recognized for their own choices and what they want for their life. So I've never had a scarcity mindset about people coming or going, because I know that as I continue to evolve as a leader and pour into people, there's going to be different people that show up because of that growth. So as a leader, what I've learned the most is I have to stay in my own lane of personal growth. And that will inspire so many more people than telling them what to do. So I want to inspire their own action. I want to inspire their own intrinsic inspiration. I want to inspire their own reason for staying in it for the infinite game. I put them into leadership positions that make them super uncomfortable super fast because I want.
Give an example, yeah, just so someone listening. So
yeah,
you've got someone coming in and you put them in this uncomfortable zone, which is the zone of genius, really, because this is where we start to grow. But give us some examples of those early things you do that put people into this. And a lot of people are scared of doing it because yeah, they want to protect. They sort of, instead of empowering, they enable. And that's, yeah, a lot of people get caught up in that enablement. So don't worry, you have to do anything, and then suddenly the people don't do anything, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, we don't talk like that here. I mean, I probably tell people all of the really, really hard things that this is going to challenge them and how it's going to challenge them. So that way they have every expectation that this is going to be just as hard as anything else they've ever done. And probably harder, because what this business does in particular is, I believe it just, like, at every level, there's another devil. It just simply starts to continually show you your self-limiting beliefs, yeah, that you have to tackle at every new level of growth, not level of achievement, but level of growth. And so when I put them in uncomfortable positions, we have a morning team Zoom that we do. So I'll interview them on there at first. So like a Q&A. So I'm there beside them and they're not necessarily out on their own. But once I interview them, then it's like, okay, now you interview one of your new emerging leaders, or I want you to go live and share your story in this business page, in this product page. I want you to start your own challenge now, and I want you to find 5 other people that will do it with you that you feel are going to add value to your team as leaders. So it's giving them the spotlight and the stage almost, so that they can feel it's uncomfortable. Most of the time they'll say, I hope that's what you, one of our incredible new emerging leaders, she's like, I hope that's what you wanted. I was so nervous. I honestly didn't even want to do it. And I said, why? And she's like, because I just didn't feel like my story was like worth anything, or I didn't feel like it would inspire anybody. And I go, that's the reason I asked you, is because that's the belief system we need to tackle. And I know that right now. So I'm kind of always creating experiences that are going to push them outside their comfort zone.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And encourage them, right, in the process.
Yeah, of course. Well, and again, the most incredible thing, and you see, I use the stage for the same reason. When I bring somebody up on stage who's scared, And watching, and you've seen me do this so many times, watching someone who's almost phobic, over just a multiple times of inviting them back and putting them in the spotlight, putting them in outside their comfort zone, and you're watching them like 2.5 days later, and they're sort of wandering on stage with their chest down. But then they start to feel something. Oh, I can do this, right? So okay, so you're challenging your leaders to sort of get uncomfortable, and then what? What do you do next?
We encourage them through the process, and most importantly, invest them in a collective vision. So our collective vision as a team right now is to have 100 executive leaders on our team. And it was something that came to me last year. And it was, there was headwinds, in our business last year, meaning it took a lot of resilience and relentlessness and staying in my own lane of belief and unwavering belief and showing up and doing the do, even with a lot of very personal challenges, that unexpected life events, passing of my grandparents, and health struggles in our family, and a lot of other things, and a lot of professional challenges as well, whether it's those seeds of doubt weaving in and out when things aren't going as well in the achievement place. And that was just so used to that, once again, growing up with uncertainty, growing up in business 101, is there are good years, there are plateaus, there are dips, there are momentum years. So I was okay with that. But during that time, I dove into leadership, and I literally read probably more books last year and listened to more podcasts than I did even the first year I started. And I was like, what's the ticket? What's the key? What keeps people in it for the infinite game? What gets their mind to see 20 years from now versus 2 months from now? And a lot of the same principles came back. It was building trust. It was seeing, something for seeing it out for the long run. It was personal growth, and literally marrying progress every day and growing as a person, even if the outcome isn't showing up yet. And I started to invest people in this collective vision of having 100 leaders on our team, executive leaders. And they thought I was crazy at first. And even I was like, is that crazy? Why did that number come to mind? And here's what I did. I did some math, and I was like, okay, with the amount of leaders that we have right now, if they're executive leaders and they, personally help 2 people become that executive leader as well, we're there. And so to me, it actually started to sound like, well, that's even like the first start for
Yeah. Should I add another 0?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I thought to myself, like, I know there's people out there like me that need a vehicle to feel fulfilled and happy and rise in leadership versus just climbing a corporate ladder, still achieving, but coming home unhappy and fulfilled, or spending an hour with your family. I know there's people that desire the work-life integration that I have. So we need to get to work to just find those people. And so suddenly we have created literally more executives in a month than we did in a year, because we believe it's possible. And suddenly it's this intention that has to do with others and not just me, but we. And so that also, as you know, changes neurology and neuroscience, because as a human, your level of necessity to show up for others is always going to be so much more than showing up for yourself. And so if you're letting the team down, it's going to be a whole lot harder than letting yourself down. And so that's why I do everything as a team, because it can't just be me. That's no fun.
Well, it's just, I was thinking about Roger Bannister, right?
That's what I was literally going to say.
Yeah. Right. But, you think about, from the time of the original Olympiad, for, hundreds of years, people thought about that 4-minute mile as being impossible. And even the year that Bannister ran the 4-minute mile, they said that scientists at the time were saying that his heart would explode.
Exactly. They didn't think it was humanly possible.
Yeah, they didn't believe the human body could do it. And so when he did it, I can't remember the exact number, but I think it was like 14 or 12 people the same year. As soon as he did it, 12 other people did it. Isn't that, that talks so loudly about what you're saying, and with this whole idea about the possibility, right?
The possibility. And then it's also creating Literally something that's palpable. What I wanted was an experience that no one would ever have before. Meaning if you're invited into our team, you're going to have an experience with simply even a welcome that you've never had before and anything else that you've done. And I collectively created that. And it's so ironic that this is called the extra mile, because it's also, as you know, a success principle, right? And it's the reason why it's not crowded is because it's so easy to do little things for people, but it's so easy to not do them. And I choose to do the little things that are going to cover every love language. They're going to cover every way that somebody would feel valued and seen and heard. So as we know, words of affirmation, quality time service, gifts, or color codes, like knowing your team and your people, so important. And that every single one of those things is covered. In fact, one of our team members just took a selfie with a book I sent him for Hitting Crystal Consultant. And he said, "Thank you, DelRae, you're so thoughtful. I looked forward to starting this." It's a John Maxwell book. So I'll handwrite notes and send out a book to everyone that hits a rank in the entire downline. It takes me sometimes an hour every morning to write out because of the number of rank advancements that we've had, but a handwritten note is now so rare that somebody actually takes the time to think about somebody. And because I know them individually, I write something different. I don't hire somebody to do that. Those words have to be written by me because I need them to know that for the first time in their life, somebody truly cares, will be there, and will be there to help make their dreams come true. Like, I will never let them down in that way. I'm always going to make mistakes as a leader because I'm still learning and growing, but I'll be the first one to admit it and learn from it and then create a solution from it.
Yeah, it's funny because when you look at Christmas cards, and I get some from friends that I'm really close to, and they kind of just pre-printed with a signature on the back, right? And when that happens, there's something that's like, I almost detach from it. It's just because, thanks. And I know they went through the effort, or someone did in their office, went through the effort of putting it in an envelope. And I appreciate that. But I open it and it just feels like, oh, oh, and I know that sounds terrible, but you said something as well. I want to go back and forwards, because there's so many things you say, and I just don't want to forget them. You said, I stayed in my lane of belief, and I stayed in my lane of, the other one you said stayed in my lane of growth, personal growth,
Yep.
Belief, personal growth. But when you say stayed in my lane, I just think it's such a great analogy. But can you give us an idea what that means? Because you said there was a headwind last year, which there was. I mean, as a company and around the world, it was like that. Because if we understand the natural progression of business, relationships, everything, ebb and flow, you just talked about it. There's a peak, a plateau, a valley, and every company in the world, including ours, goes through those natural peaks, valleys, and plateaus. And when you're going into a valley, you start seeing some people are thinking, oh, this isn't working, and they're getting out. Some people left, but you stayed in the lane, and look what's happening. I mean, look what's happening to our company. It's just exploding, right? But we had to go through that hard time in order to sort of make the adjustments. And that's what you did when you were broke, and you were making that call to your mother. You were kind of going into that deep valley before. Now look at you right now. Boom. Now you have a global team. You're respected around the world as a true professional in the profession of network marketing. And so again, talk to us about when you talk about staying in the lane. What does that mean?
I think the fastest way to take yourself out of anything is comparison and involving yourself in someone else's business or life. Because I have such a crystal clear vision about why this vehicle makes me so happy and fulfilled. I don't think that there's a better one for me to serve people. And when I start to hear seeds of doubt, or so a victim mindset is blaming, complaining, and justifying everything outside of you for the reason why you're at where you're at. And then a growth mindset is seeing that there is an event happening, but what kind of story are you attaching to it and why? And I just knew that that's what life cycles do, business cycles, they do that. It's normal. And to normalize those feelings for people is very important, because we have a lot, either CEO mindsets also or employee mindsets. And sometimes the uncertainty of going through those times gets the best of people. And so belief is so important. And when I stayed in that own lane, it just meant I drowned the noise. I drown any noise. It doesn't apply to me. Drama, gossip, seeds of doubt will not be embedded here. I just refuse for it to happen. And so I realized where were my growth opportunities during that time? Like, what did I need to get better at as a leader? What did I need to study overall in this business model to lean in even when it was harder? And that's another thing when we talk about financial freedom, or what people think this business is. Like, this is not passive income. It's not like, this is a business. So you have to work a business. Now, it gives you the freedom of choice. It gives you flexibility. It gives you the ability to design your days, but it's not like you do nothing and leave it and it just flourishes on its own. That's not this business model. And I'm okay and happy with that, because I have more choice than I could have ever had in any other business model. And what I realized during that time were I don't call things weaknesses, I call them growth opportunities. And I knew my growth opportunities, like my top priorities, were marketing and messaging, story branding, and servant leadership. So how to build a team of servant leaders. So I dove into everything I could find, literally just every day. What could I find on these subjects, and how could I apply it to the business? Now, some worked, some didn't work at all. And it's just like today, during this time of this new experience we're all having, I just told the team, I go, okay, here's what's happening, because some things are starting to open up a little bit. The messaging might be different. You may have to pivot faster now than ever before, but that's what's beautiful about being resourceful. And then as people, so I came into this business when several of our top leaders went even faster than I did. I am talking like the type of growth that you just literally don't see in a decade. Some of these top leaders, came in, Trudy Maples and Laura Stevens, all these people. So when I saw that, for a moment, when my athlete mindset was like, what are they doing? They must have something I don't. Like, I must be doing something wrong, or look at, I'm not going as fast. There's got to be something, that I'm not good at. Maybe I'm not good at this. Maybe I should be, that person. I thought, oh my gosh, if I'm on the cover of Forbes, I have made it in life. Or if I have made it on the cover of Success magazine, that must mean that I definitely have been successful. And what I realized is they may have had more experience in a certain area than me.
Yeah.
Trudy did network marketing for 20 plus years. I was brand new. I had never logged into a back office like this ever. So I also gave myself a little grace and said, you got a lot to learn. You still have a lot to learn. How cool is that? And how cool is it that the next generation of leaders they're going to think like you? So when I was going through all of that knowledge and trying to apply it to the business, I also did something that I think was pivotal for my level of happiness and fulfillment. I started to do relief work, volunteer trips. I started to partner with a nonprofit to create and fund mental health children's books to help them process emotional trauma post-natural disaster. We even did a coloring book for COVID. And what that did was pivotal for my life, because what people complain about are first world problems.
Yeah.
And if you're complaining about, a $300,000 plus income in a business model like this, then there's something in priorities that are wrong. And so what it gave me was gratitude perspective. So I never had the last year to complain about anything that I've been given in this opportunity. I just knew that there was going to be it was a season. And ironically, what I did for that year is what showed up in the past 4 weeks of doubling my business in 4 weeks. Yeah, doubling, literally.
Well, hold on, just say this, because you think about this we compare this to any other business model in the world, right? If you have a 6-year-old business or 5-year-old business and you can double it in a week, that is extreme leverage. And, you know, I've never heard in any other profession in the world where you can be 5 years in and in one particular week, right? And that says a lot about your leadership style and the buy-in from the entire team, because you can't double it. I mean, imagine you try to double it on your own. You wouldn't sleep, and you still couldn't, even if you didn't sleep and didn't eat. But the idea of leveraging it through the team, wow, congratulations.
Well, you know, it's what we did for that year. I went into major, you know, recruiting mode, like connecting with the people that shared the servant heart. I did, like, who is out there that sees the infinite game. And because of that, literally 2 people came in, went to the top level of leadership in less than, you know, 4 months. Now several are, because once again, Roger Bannister, they see it, the new generation, they're doing it. Oh, it's not just this person, it's this one, this one, this one. So now the belief is so high that, like, oh my gosh, we are going to have 100 executives on this team. So it was what was done for a year. And that's why when people say right now, well, my business doesn't look like that. Well, it's not what you're doing this month. It's what you did in a year. And investing in people for that long, it's building trust. I didn't dip out. Even when I promise you, I did not feel like showing up for morning Zooms last summer when I was helping a family member through treatments. I didn't feel like going out and doing all the things that I knew I had to do. But when you see the infinite game, you do it anyway, because people need you. And so many people need this right now.
Talk about, just so people who haven't done or read any of Simon Sinek's work, and I understand the infinite game is kind of more, you know, people are using that currently because, you know, he's come out with a new book. But I wonder if you can just give people just a perspective, because they may just be hearing this for the first time and it may not be ringing in their head what it means.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my verbiage, you'll probably know who I read and what resonates with me.
Well, luckily I hear some of my work in there.
I love your work. Oh my gosh. I mean, such an influence. I did a little story on Instagram from, like, I'm literally going to do a podcast with David Wood. I'm so excited. And it's because when you can see yourself in someone like that, like when your values are so aligned and you know that there are people out there that care and can lead with compassion and realize you can still get the work done, even if you lead with compassion, like that's so powerful to me. Brene Brown's like dare to lead with vulnerable leadership. It's how I choose to lead. And it builds such a level of meaning and trust in your team. And what Simon talks about is, you know, he just truly believes that a workspace of co-creation, collaboration, and trust will allow people to get out of finite thinking. And finite thinking means you're attached to an outcome, you're attached to a profit number, you're attached to something that is achievement driven. And finite minds, when they don't get there, or there's a tough year, or there's a tough, maybe even conflict, you know, there's a lot of conflict when you do business because I don't know, they involve humans, right? So conflict resolution is so important, because when you see the long like the long game, meaning why are you here, and why are you here for not just 2 months but 2 years and then 20 years? Because for me, this was a legacy choice. This was a choice for me to leave a legacy for my girls, and that wasn't going to be a 2 month or 2 year process. That was going to be a 20-year. And you know, that kind of ownership of seeing something out because it's that important to you, it's that meaningful to you, and your why is so solid for serving others, that's the difference. And you know, you can see companies rise and fall, especially on finite leadership, because they do things to operate out of profit and not what's best for people. And thankfully, I saw that in our company. I saw them evolve and shift and always do the right thing for people. And that is why I'm so invested in the infinite game with them, because I know they're learning and growing as a whole as well as a leadership team, but I know they'll always do the right thing. And they'll guide us in the right direction as we evolve, because you have to evolve with time.
Yeah, and that servant leadership part of aligning with, like you talk about, aligning with people who have similar values, you know, and when do we find out what people's real values are in hard times, you see, or hard situations?
Exactly.
That's see the character of real. That's why I love them. I love adversity. I love conflict.
So do I.
I would say I love having conflict with someone, because I know that because I'm willing to have sort of the infinite mindset, is that beyond that conflict becomes greater love, greater compassion. Because when you go through it and you resolve it, there's kind of like, there's been this kind of like deepening of the bond, I say, right? Yeah, yep. Exactly. So just maybe talk to me about, I love where we're going with this. And again, we don't have too long left, but I love the families there with you. I just love it. I love, because so often everyone wants everything to be perfect, you know, and it's just like a perfectly imperfect world is they, I can hear you. Is that your daughter I can hear?
Yeah. They made some energy balls.
Yeah, exactly. But how cool is that? You know, anyway, I just want to keep saying that.
I mean, I was nursing her on most of my Zooms. I mean, she's integrated into my life. My older daughter's so easy. She's just wonderful and just simple. But my little one's a lot of like spunk, like I used to be. And I realized I couldn't separate the two. And when people try and prioritize something, it's like trying to spin those plates. Like one's always going to need more attention. And so there's no such thing as balancing it out. It's just prioritizing it daily. And I choose to weave them into my days with this because they get to attach a story now of resilience and service to this pandemic versus fear and you know, a lot of the stories we could attach to it. So that's why I love this business model so much, is you don't have to choose between your work and your family.
I love it. Talk to me a little bit about what's some of the mistakes or common mistakes, if we look at your whole history from the small town to the school to, you know, being sort of called out in your college as being, you know, an extreme example of excellence. So you've gone through, you know, chiropractic college, you've gone through multiple businesses, now to network marketing 5 years in. You know, there's lots of things, we talk about servant leadership, but there's lots of things people do that really don't work. And I wonder if there's some stuff that you've experienced and you see it maybe with leaders, because there's other leaders listening to you right now. And they're not, maybe they want the success. They want to see their business double, but, you know, maybe they're sort of blocking or they're in the way of that. And I just wonder, do you have any thoughts about some of the things that you've tried or some of the things you see that really aren't working?
You know, I think that, yes, absolutely. Messaging and learning how to message correctly. That was a huge challenge for me because marketing in the past, if you think about how people message, it's what relates us to either a customer or somebody we're going to work with. And I used to message benefit. You know, like, you got to feel as good as I do. This is amazing. And all the benefits of products. And, you know, when we share only benefits, it's very hard to relate to the pain point. And so I would say my biggest growth opportunity was learning how to message and share through storytelling and relatability. And especially in a time like now, the companies that are still messaging in the same way they're tone deaf because people aren't going to relate to that. And so my biggest mistakes that I made previously in other businesses was marketing every benefit that a product had, that a service had, instead of really relating to the pain point and helping customers share their stories or helping people share their stories. That is what I'm so passionate about, because stories sell and facts tell. Stories are what relate us. They are what connect us as humans. So those are, I think, what I've learned the most. I made the mistake of the wrong type of messaging for a long time.
Yeah. And then when we talk about, you know, sort of as we talk about the servant heart, servant leadership, we're coming close to the end of the show. What is that, as you're leading these leaders through, and we see that they're sort of, they're grasped onto the great vision here, you know, and the 100 executives, which I think is a starting point, as you mentioned, is really about everybody else, because, you know, it's not really about you, it's about 100 executives, because you know that each of those people hit those marks. Talk sort of as you're maturing leaders, what is that sort of, what is that sort of next step or the step after that? Let's lead us through the whole journey for us.
Well, we have to get their story down and their personal vision and their personal mission, because it can't be mine, you know, and it can't also be the company's, because we all have our own reason why. And usually that involves our story. You know, our story is what inspires us to start sharing out of our comfort zone, and our story Sorry, I had some background noise I'm trying to manage.
It's okay. I love it.
And helping them really hone in on what their story is makes them feel so authentic. It's like, what are the parts of the pain points in your life, the struggles and challenges that you can really share vulnerably with people? And why has this been such a blessing to your life, either physically, emotionally, or financially? And so we really hone in on that and what their personal vision is. For me, because I am and was a single mom and I was so stressed as a business owner, my personal vision is to help people see the work-life integration that you can have here. Like, that is my number one, that you do not have to choose between your family or your work, and that you can have both and have flexibility and choice in that. And then I think about other leaders that we have having stories of, losing a parent to chronic disease. So theirs is, prevention and education. Somebody that's been through depression and anxiety, and theirs is mental health and awareness of that. Other people is they've never had a place where they've been celebrated, and creating and cultivating a community of celebrating people and recognizing them. I love impact and contribution and service. So using the type of abundance that I've been given to circulate it back into the planet, specifically with the mental health and the coloring books created recently. Like, nothing makes me happier than that. But I want them to grab their own, because that's going to get them through the times when it's hard, when they don't feel like doing it. And it's a reminder constantly of that why. And they all know each other. So I'll throw them into these small groups together where they have to share with each other. They'll have to be held accountable to their goals. And then most of them will say, recently, specifically, I didn't hit the goal that I set for this week, but I'm super proud of this, this, and this, and this. Yeah. And that's when I know we're doing the right thing, because they're still celebrating who they're becoming in the process versus just hitting their next goal.
I thought about your dad standing on the finish line of your first race and crying his eyes out, the fact that you did it. Everyone was going home and here you are coming in last and, being lapped twice, awesome. We're going to close the show out in a second here. I wonder if you can cast a vision for me of, this is your first 5 years, which means, you probably wouldn't even consider yourself a full professional yet. Maybe you do, but I wonder where you're at. If you rank yourself out of 10 as far as a full professional leader in this profession, where you think you're at. But then what's the next 5 years or 10 years? What's the infinite game for you and this team? And where do you see things going? What's coming up for you?
Oh, I think I was at like a 7 or 8, before COVID, to be honest. And it all had to do with probably, again, waiting for that tipping point to happen of acceptance of this business model. I kind of waited for that with chiropractic for a while, where you work against resistance of credibility and, opinions and things like that. And, I was even still challenged in that, even after everything that I did in this model. You think about people coming in that are new and how challenging that is to start to redefine like the evolution of a business model. And so for me, it has everything to do with sharing the profession itself, the credibility behind it. And, for me, the next 5 years has everything to do with, again, the team of 100 executives. I have everything I possibly could desire, as far as, once again, like those studies that show there's no amount of happiness past, what is it, $75,000 or something like that.
75 grand a year.
Yeah. So, and I've actually experienced that. So I start to ask myself daily, like, where are you most fulfilled? Where are you most happy, and why? And it's always in seeing these people rise up, whether they're, again, just a happy product user that suddenly shared their story, or a leader that just, did something that we get to celebrate. So that's my vision, is that we do surpass that 100 executives and then say 100 more. And the reason why is I feel like at that level of leadership, you've created like an impact. You create impact no matter what, but you really step into your own potential, your own greatness, your own team that you're cultivating. And I want that. I want that independence. I also believe leadership is unique, where it's as unique as our fingerprint and our DNA, because we're all unique humans. So you don't have to do it the way anybody else has done it. And that's the beautiful process of it. I think for me, I have a vision of more healthcare professionals joining this, this industry. I feel like there has never been a model that's more built for somebody that did get the credentials and the credibility and is now feeling the weight of trading time for money, of being in it for so long, and maybe having different priorities that arise for me when somebody in my life needed me the most, and I was able to say I can be there, or
Yeah.
I could bring my computer to a treatment, or I could take time off when I needed to and still get paid the same amount. A chiropractor friend of mine he said, this is time, it's time for me. My mom passed away of cancer and I had to say no many times to my family when I wanted to be there. And I just feel like whoever desires that kind of priority, this business model is such a gift for time flexibility. I just feel like there's more people that don't know how it can be done, and what kind of impact can be made and how they can grow as a person through the process. So that's my personal goal, is just to continue to share my story and pour belief into them and actually show them through action how you can align your core values with this, how you can align your character. And like you said, anything, I believe more money, more opportunity, it magnifies the person you are.
Yeah.
So it'll magnify good people, like it'll magnify bad people. But if you're that person that does have that servant heart and you're looking for more impact, it'll just magnify that for you.
Yeah. So we're really at the end of the show, and I just wanted to, so last word, leaders out there right now. And, there's a lot of that struggle, am I doing the right thing? Sort of that constant questioning can be there. But let's say they have a team, but maybe they're stuck a little bit. What's your advice?
I think right now, especially with everything that's going on in the world, and that won't change, people are always going to go through challenges. It's people don't care what you know until they know how much you care. Like that is my motto right now, because I just feel like when leaders get stuck or frustrated, it's because they've attached an expectation to a result. And you're always going to be frustrated and let down. So, and servant leadership is not a tit for tat model, meaning I do this or I expect this back. It is contributing and serving without expecting anything in return. And suddenly the right alignment is going to happen the more that you practice that. So I was practicing gratitude for the life I'm living today 5 years ago when I had nothing, because I was grateful for all of the little things before I had a lot of the things, if that makes sense. Like I was grateful for one residual income cycle before I had 100. And I feel like the people that can't be grateful for where they're at while they know they're moving forward, it's very challenging because there's always going to be frustration or letdown. So embrace the progress and also go and serve on a level you never have before, because when you get into that state and it becomes practice for you, you're going to be so happy and fulfilled regardless of what the outcome is.
I can tell this is not going to be our last show together. I mean, I can talk to you for days and days and days. There's so much wisdom. I love the congruency is like what I feel with you. And again, even watching you in a room, I've watched you on stage and I'm listening to you talk for a couple of hours, which has been so blessing for me as well. And, but that congruency, your inner world aligning perfectly with your outer world. And then, this whole show is about servant leadership. And I just want to say, I see you, and every word I hear a servant heart, and it's just beautiful. This is my third time crying since you've been around. So I really thank you so much. For those of you listening at home, again, show is all about those little extra steps, those incremental tiny things you can do on a daily basis consistently. I always talk about the 1% rule. Imagine if you just improve by 1% today and 1% tomorrow and 1% the next day, of what can happen and compound over 365 days or over the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years. So with that being said, we will definitely see you on the other side.